Let's talk about town hall fat cats. We love that term, don't we? James Hill is with me, political correspondent of The Spectator. Extraordinary revelations. These come every year from the Taxpayers Alliance. We'll talk to you in just a moment. But town hall fat cats, nearly 2,800 council officials earning over £100,000 a year. 721 of them own, I say earn, or paid, let's be clear about the terms we're using here, are paid £150,000 a year plus. In Guildford, their chief exec is earning, when you include the pensions as well, these are huge pensions, about half of this, £607,000 a year. These are huge sums of money. These are the sort of sums of money that someone perhaps running a FTSE 100 company making a profit in the private sector would expect to earn. Is there any justification for anyone running a council paid by the taxpayer to be earning that sort of cash, given the Prime Minister's on, what, 140k?
As I say, I think the fact that, I mean, the number of people earning six-figure salaries is up by a third should be cause for alarm, in the sense that we know, obviously, the case with COVID, when great crises happen with the state, there tends to be an expansion of their powers and their role and the size and the spending of the state. And therefore, I think that perhaps some of this could be linked to what happened in 2020, 2021. I would just be curious as to kind of what efficiency savings or demonstrable improvements have been done to justify this increase in people getting six-figure salaries.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Yes, what are you delivering for that would be the question. Well, let's talk about that with Elliot Keck. He's Investigations Campaign Manager at the Taxpayers Alliance. Good morning to you.
Morning, Julia.
Thanks so much for joining us. I mean, every single year you bring these figures out, and every single year I'm gobsmacked. Were you surprised by how many people are earning these sorts of salaries?
I don't think we are ever surprised to see councils' fat cat salaries soar. This year, actually, the increase has not been what we perhaps would have expected, and the reason for that is that so many councils have not published their accounts in time, which is particularly concerning, I think, at a time when council transparency is more important than ever.
Sorry, have they got the SNP in charge of their accounts?
Well, you do wonder. So, for example, some of the councils that have declared bankruptcy, some of the councils that were at the top of the town hall rich list last year, like Croydon, who paid out over £600,000 to one person last year, they didn't publish their accounts in time, which means that taxpayers, people that are facing record rate rises, are not able to look at how much people are being paid.
But I'm sorry, you have to publish your accounts on time. That's a legal requirement.
You do, and they had to be published by, I think, November, and there's absolutely nothing about 40%.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you the reason for that. It's quote, because COVID. That'll be the reason. It's the same reason they don't answer the phone anymore, because of COVID. It's the same reason everything doesn't function, because of COVID. Because, you know, something that happened a few years ago is going to be the reason why we just don't get any services and nothing's ever done forever. Absolutely, and you know, people across the country are looking at these increases. Places like Essex, where the number has increased by 8, that they've got 8 more people earning over £100,000, and they're looking at their bins, they're looking at their streets, they're looking at their services. Well, they're looking at their bins all over their streets, is what they're doing.
They're thinking, are things actually really, really improving?
Well, this is the thing. I'm intensely relaxed about people earning as much money as they can. I've got no issue with that whatsoever. Never been a socialist. And if someone running a FTSE 100 company can manage to wangle a deal when the shareholders agree and they are getting themselves paid £10 million a year, I say good for you. The issue is when you're being paid by the taxpayer and when you're saying we haven't got the services to provide, we haven't got the money to pay for, you know, your grandmother who lives 300 miles away from you to get someone to come in and change the bandages on her leg every day, then people have got a right to say, well, hold on a minute, how come you do have the money to pay you that much? Because we would expect people in the public sector not to be earning as much. I'm sorry, we would. But we're told constantly by these organisations, we have to compete with the private sector, so we have to pay private sector salaries. Is that true?
I think that a council which is incredibly well run, that keeps its rates low for its residents, is entitled to look at their numbers in the town hall rich list and say, we think that residents are getting value for money, but what it's up to is the residents to essentially agree with them. And there are councils up and down the country that are piling on the top level salaries. They're sticking them up year after year, and that ultimately are cutting services. So listen, you know, our point of doing this every single year is not to cast our own individual judgment on some of these councils, although, you know, you look at Guildford Council and a £607,000 payout, and you have to say that is eye-watering. Our point is to provide residents, taxpayers, your viewers, the possibility to look at these figures and think, am I getting value for money from my council?
Absolutely. I mean that is one of the crucial things, isn't it? And especially as so many of these people are now working from home, presiding over council buildings which are largely empty because everyone's working from home. People seem to be having a quite nice life. But also, crucially, when you're comparing, and we have this with when we look at wage increases, when we're looking at NHS workers and others going out on strike saying, but the private sector, they're getting higher wage increases to cope with inflation. That always ignores, and you'll see this in the council fat cats as well, it always ignores the huge pension contributions that these people make. And they're basically taking some deferred salary at a lower tax rate, which we're paying for, and they're saying, well, I'm only getting this much in salary. Actually, there's huge sums of money that are going in for their future life. We're not comparing like with like.
No, I think you're absolutely right. That's a really important point to make. So what the Town Hall Rich List looks at is remuneration, not pay.
Yeah.
So remuneration is made up of your salary,
your package,
of your expenses, your bonuses, and absolutely the pension. And right across the board, actually, a lot of these remuneration packages are pretty pension heavy because, as you say, one of the extraordinary perks of working in the public sector, one of the things that we don't talk about enough is the very, very generous pensions you get.
But it's also one of the questions, is there any link whatsoever, any correlation between a chief executive who's paid a huge sum of money, say the fourth biggest pay packet went to Sandy Hopkins, who's chief executive of Southampton City Council, well, until last year, she received £406,000 and then got a £188,000 payoff. I don't know why she got a payoff. Why do people all need payoffs? No one in the public sector seems to leave without a payoff these days. Is Southampton City Council, is there any evidence that it is so much better run and so much more efficient as a result of Sandy Hopkins' brilliant expertise, which is why she had to be paid that super-duper private sector FTSE 100 company level salary, that it's so much better run than the 5th, 6th or 20th council?
Well, I think the fact that they're giving her such a large payoff in order to get her to leave suggests that that may not be the case.
Yes, I think you damned with simple words there. Elliot, keep up the good work. Investigations Campaigns Manager at Taxpayers Alliance.